Hello, boys and girls. My name is Miss Cindy, and I am your host for today. And this is your teacher, Miss B. Today, we will continue our study of the universe. Today's lesson is titled The International Space Station. By the end of today's lesson, we will be able to ask and answer questions by referring explicitly to the text and determine the meaning of words and phrases relevant to the text we read. We have learned some great information throughout our time together. During this study, we have learned that Mae Jemison was the first African-American female to travel to space for NASA. We also learned that the International Space Station is currently the largest artificial man-made body in orbit and is continuously inhabited, meaning astronauts and/or scientists are living aboard it. In today's lesson, Miss B will help you review even more of the great facts that we have learned. That information will be used to create an informational writing piece.
Boys and girls, before we get to writing, do you know what the word informational means? Tell your partner what you think it means. That's right. In the word information, we see the word inform, which means to tell, and the suffix ation means which denotes an action, and then the suffix ul means relating to. So the word informational means facts provided, told or learned that are related to something or someone. Great job thinking about the parts of the word informational and using those parts to determine the word's meaning. Let's play a fun game with our vocabulary terms we've learned so that we can use them in writing. Here you will see all of the terms we have learned during our reading of the International Space Station. Take a moment to quickly review them before our game. You may now notice the sentences and pictures are gone. That's because we want you to really stretch your brains to figure out the answers. Now that you have done that, let me tell you the rules of the game. First, I will flash a vocabulary card on the screen. Your job is to listen to or read it aloud, and then think about the definitions and sentences you have learned to determine where the vocabulary word fits best. Then, Mrs. Cindy will help us check our answers. Are you ready? Great. The first word is gravity. Where does gravity belong?
If you said gravity is a force that pulls things toward one another, then you are correct. Miss B, I think we're ready for our next word.
Okay. Our second word is international. What is the definition for international?
If you said international is involving more than one country, you are right again. Let's give our third one a try.
The word is orbit. Which definition means orbit?
The definition for orbit is the curved path something takes around another object in space.
This one may be a little easier to figure out, but we are still going to try it. The words are space station. What do those words mean?
Correct. A space station is a manned satellite that is made to be in outer space for a long period of time.
Boys and girls, you did a phenomenal job on that. Don't you agree, Miss Cindy?
I do, Miss B, and I can't wait to see what they do on the text-specific questions.
We have read the passage, the International Space Station, in a previous lesson. Today, we're going to read through the passage again to refresh our memory. Following our reading, we will answer some questions before moving into our informational writing piece. Get ready to listen as Mrs. Cindy begins reading about rereading the International Space Station.
The International Space Station. Would you like to have a bedroom in outer space? Some astronauts do. The United States and other countries use the space shuttle to send astronauts to an international space station. The space station orbits Earth. 3 astronauts can live there at one time. They stay for 6 months at a time. This image shows the space station. The space station orbits far above Earth, so the astronauts in the space station don't feel the effects of gravity like we do on Earth. When we lift our arms and legs here on Earth, we have to work against gravity. That is good for us. It helps us stay in shape. But astronauts in space don't have the effects of gravity to work against. They do not get much of a workout from drifting around. They have to run at least once a day to stay in good shape. In this image, you can see an astronaut jogging in space. These 2 men are sleeping in space. They don't feel the effects of gravity, so they are moving freely within the spaceship. This means they can sleep right side up or upside down. It is all the same. Do you think you would like sleeping this way? Taking a shower in space is tricky. On Earth, the water comes out of the spout. It falls down and splashes on your body. Then it runs off. But this is not what happens in space. In space, you have to rub the water on your skin. Also, it does not just drip off. You have to scrape it off. You have to shower in a little pod. The pod keeps the water you scrape off your skin from drifting off in the air. If it drifted off, it might cause problems. It might mess up the computers and equipment inside the space station. You can see that lots of things are different when you live in space. That is why leaving the space station and coming back to Earth can be hard. It takes time for the astronauts to get used to Earth again. After months in space, they struggle with gravity on Earth. Their arms and legs feel heavy. They find it hard to stand up. They feel off balance. But in a few weeks, they begin to feel normal again. Sometimes, when they look up at the sky, they even feel a little homesick for their home in outer space.
Boys and girls, thank you so much for listening so well while Mrs. Cindy reread the International Space Station to us. Now let's get ready to answer some out-of-this-world text-specific questions. Remember, all of these answers can be found in the text, so we will definitely need to make sure we look for those supporting details as the questions are asked. Also, our informational writing today will focus on the International Space Station. So another reason we are answering more questions is to get our brains ready and fired up to have all these things to remember. To do that, we are going to play a game. As the questions pop up, I will read them. You will discuss with your partner, and then you will share your answer with me. You will share your answer by showing me the sign language for the letter you chose. Let's practice the sign language for the letters A, B, C, and D. Are you ready? Great. This is the letter A and the sign for the letter A. Try making that sign now. Good job. The next letter is B, and here is the sign for it. Can you make the sign for B? Awesome. Let's try the sign for letter C. How did you do? Great job. The last letter is D. Make the sign for D now. Wonderful job. We will use the signs to show our answer to the questions. Let's get ready to answer some text-specific questions now. Our first question is, how many astronauts can live at the International Space Station at once? Is it A, 2 astronauts can live at the International Space Station at once? B, 15 astronauts can live at the International Space Station at once? C, 3 astronauts can live at the International Space Station at once? Or D, 5 astronauts can live at the International Space Station at once. Remember to look for your supporting evidence before you settle on an answer. The answer to the first question is C. 3 astronauts can live at the International Space Station at once, as we see in the highlighted text. Let's check out our next question. Question number 2 is, how long does an astronaut stay at the International Space Station? Is the answer A, an astronaut stays at the International Space Station for 1 year? B, an astronaut stays at the International Space Station for 6 months? C, an astronaut stays at the International Space Station for 6 years? Or D, an astronaut stays at the International Space Station for 8 months? Take a moment now to check back in the text for your answer. The answer to question number 2 is highlighted in green within the text, and, as we see, is B, an astronaut stays at the International Space Station for 6 months. Let's keep moving to answer more questions. The next question is, which sentence or sentences from the text best supports why astronauts in space must run daily? Mrs. Cindy, will you read those choices for us aloud?
Sure. Boys and girls, is the answer to the question A, their arms and legs feel heavy? B, the space station orbits far above the Earth? C, but astronauts in space don't have the effects of gravity to work against? They do not get much of a workout from drifting around? Or D, the pod keeps the water you scrape off your skin from drifting off in the air?
If you all showed the sign for letter C, you got the answer correct. This next question has a part A and a part B, so make sure to pay very close attention because part A and part B will rely on each other. Part A of question 4 reads, what are some effects astronauts feel after returning to Earth after being on the International Space Station? Let's read our answer choices together. A, feeling as though they are still in orbit. B, their arms and legs feel heavy. They can have difficulty standing and be off balance. C, they have difficulty sleeping because they got used to sleeping upside down and right side up. Or D, they never miss being in space. Don't forget about your text evidence. You were right if you signed the letter B, choosing their arms and legs feel heavy, they find it hard to stand up, they feel off balance. Let's finish strong with our last question. Our last and final text-specific question is question 4, part B. What statement from the passage supports the reason or reasons for the answer choice in part A? Will you answer A, but in a few weeks they begin to feel normal again? B, you can see that lots of things are different when you live in space? C, you can see that lots of things are different when you live in space? Or D, after months in space, they struggle with the gravity on Earth?
Miss B, I saw all the students showing the letter D because we read in the text, after months in space, they struggle with the gravity on Earth. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. You all were 100% right. What an amazing, out-of-this-world job you did answering those text-specific questions.
Now, boys and girls, this is the moment we have all been waiting for. It's time for us to get ready to do some informational writing. Earlier in the lesson, Miss B worked with you to understand the meaning of the word informational. Raise your hand if you remember what the word informational means. Wow, good job remembering. Tell us what it means. Boys and girls, that's right. Informational means facts provided, told, or learned that are related to something or someone. Are you ready to blast into informational writing with Ms. B? Awesome! Let's go in 3, 2, 1.
Thank you, Mrs. Cindy. Informational writing helps a reader to learn, and today our informational writing will help others learn about the International Space Station. First, we are going to look at our writing prompt. What is a writing prompt, you ask? Well, a writing prompt will help us understand what it is that we should write about so that we know what facts to use from the passage, meaning it gives a focus for our writing and keeps us on track. Our writing prompt today is, you have read a passage titled The International Space Station. The passage discussed what living without gravity aboard the International Space Station is like. Explain the different changes in an astronaut's daily life routine caused by no gravity while living aboard the International Space Station. Be sure to utilize details from the passage to support your answer.
Ms. B, there is so much information to remember within that prompt. Is there something we can do to help us understand what we need to write about?
Definitely. Before you ever begin writing, you want to read your prompt and then deconstruct it. That means to break it down. Deconstructing the prompt will help us understand the prompt and know exactly what we need to write about. So let's work together to deconstruct this prompt now. We are going to start with identifying the keywords within the prompt. The keywords will help us to identify the mode, meaning, is it informational, opinion, or narrative? In our prompt, we see a keyword boxed in green. The keyword explains means to tell, which leads me to identify the prompt as an informational prompt. Next, let's take a look at the prompt to determine the specific task that we need to do. We can see 3 things highlighted in teal: astronauts' daily life routine, no gravity, and aboard the International Space Station. When we put all of these things together, we know what we should write in our informational writing. This is called our writer's checklist. Boys and girls, read this with me. Tell about an astronaut's daily life routine with no gravity aboard the International Space Station. Now that we have identified the writing task, keywords, and know the mode, we are ready to write. Let's look at writing our topic sentence. To construct a topic sentence, we use the prompt. That means we will restate our writing prompt. What are some ways that we could restate the prompt or say it again? Great. We can leave off the word explain and restate it as, there are different changes in an astronaut's daily routine caused by the lack of gravity while living aboard the International Space Station. Now, you reread the topic sentence on your own. If you have paper at home, you can write it as well. We have our topic sentence, so now we need to add details from the passage to support our topic sentence. Look at the highlighted details. Read those with me. Astronauts in the space station don't feel the effects of gravity and run at least once a day to stay in good shape. In the image, you can see an astronaut jogging in space. We know that this allows the astronauts to move around and that they have to stay in shape since there will be no gravity once they return to Earth, or there will be gravity once they return to Earth. So our first detail reads, since there is no gravity to keep the astronauts on the floor of the shuttle, they are able to move around freely. This causes the astronauts to work out daily to keep their muscles in shape for when they return to Earth. Mrs. Cindy, can you help the students go back to the topic sentence and reread what we have so far?
Sure, Miss B. We can choral read what we've written so far. Are you ready? There are different changes in an astronaut's daily life routine caused by the lack of gravity while living aboard the International Space Station. Since there is no gravity to keep the astronauts on the floor of the shuttle, they are able to move around freely. This causes the astronauts to work out daily to keep their muscles in shape when they return to Earth.
Good job. It's time to go back into the passage and find a second detail to add to our informational writing. Look at the highlighted details here. Read those with me. Don't feel the effects of gravity, and sleep right side up or upside down. What do those mean? Right, this means that they can sleep in different directions. Let's synthesize that information for our second detail. So our second detail reads, also, because astronauts do not feel gravity in space, they can sleep in different directions. This shows that an astronaut's body can adapt to the changes with gravity from Earth to space. Let's go back to the topic sentence and reread what we have so far. Whoa, we have done a lot of writing. Mrs. Cindy, can you give us a recap of what all we have done?
I sure can. We have written our topic sentence and supported our prompt with details from the text. To end our writing, we need to add a closing sentence.
The closing sentence is pulled from the topic sentence and can be a restate of that sentence, or it could be a thought-provoking question. For our informational writing today, we're going to just restate the topic sentence. When we restate, it is important to continue to use your own words though. Boys and girls, can you think of a way that we can restate to form a closing sentence? When we restate the topic sentence, our closing sentence reads, the lack of gravity experienced by an astronaut while aboard the International Space Station has a direct impact on how their daily routines are accomplished. We have now completed our informational writing. We have a topic sentence, details from the text that support our prompt, and we have a closing sentence so let's go back and reread this great writing together. There are different changes in an astronaut's daily life routine caused by the lack of gravity while living aboard the International Space Station. Since there is no gravity to keep the astronauts on the floor of the shuttle, they are all able to move around freely. This causes the astronauts to work out daily to keep their muscles in shape for when they return to Earth. Also, because astronauts do not feel gravity in space, they can sleep in different directions. This shows that an astronaut's body can adapt to the changes with gravity from Earth to space. The lack of gravity experienced by an astronaut while aboard the International Space Station has a direct impact on how their daily routines are accomplished.
Great job today with the writing. You were able to pull details from our passage to create an informational writing, meaning you told the reader about factual details. Remember, before you write, deconstruct the prompt, plan, and then complete your writing. Always go back and read what you have written.
Boys and girls, thank you for joining us today as we traveled back to the International Space Station once more. We have enjoyed all of our space adventures with you, and you have done an outstanding job during our time together. All rights and credits for today's lesson belong to Core Knowledge Language Arts. We would like to thank them for publicly sharing these valuable resources. The views and opinions expressed in this lesson are those of the Core Knowledge authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Mississippi Department of Education. Goodbye, boys and girls.